Is Democratic Representative from California's 21st District, Jim Costa. It is great to have you, sir. Thank you for joining the program.
Thank you, Kelly. It's good to be on NewsNation.
Great to have you. So let's start with the bill. July 4th, as you know, just around the corner. What are your thoughts on the deadline to get this bill on the president's desk, especially in light of all that's taken place in recent days?
Well, it's big. I would not say it's beautiful. However, the deadline is a deadline that the president has created for the purposes of having a big signing ceremony on the 4th of July. I understand the value of the 4th of July celebration and him wanting to sign the bill, but there is no deadline here in Congress. If it came to a week later or to work out the differences, it would not make a difference. And so we'll see. I know the Senate and the House are under a lot of pressure from the administration to get this bill in time for him to sign it on the 4th of July. And he's a very good salesman, and obviously that's part of his sales job.
So you sit on the House Committee of Foreign Affairs. I want to pivot just for a quick second. As we know, the president has secured additional NATO funding from almost every other country. What is your reaction to that development? Do you think it will do anything to quell future conflicts in the Middle East or in this ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, I think that's good news, and the president deserves a share of the credit, although previous administrations have attempted to get our NATO allies to increase their level of spending for NATO. It's overdue, and the fact that there was an agreement this week, I think the president should be pleased with that. He put a lot of pressure on our NATO allies. But having worked with the European Union and the NATO conference, we've been urging, I think, our allies to do this for some time. I think the catalyst for all of this, in large part, was Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I think it really became a dire warning for European countries, and certainly the Eastern European countries. I'm talking about Poland, Romania, the Baltic states, have known for a long time what Russia's real intent is. They lived under the Soviet boot during the communism era. And so I think it's a wake-up call in part, and it's good news for ourselves, who have committed to what is the longest peacetime period in Europe post-World War II, up until the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, for the longest time in over 1,000 years. Think about that. NATO is responsible in large part for creating this longest time peace period in over 1,000 years in Europe. So NATO must remain strong. It must remain vigilant, and it ought to be a warning to Russia that the NATO countries are aligned in to ensure their independence and their freedoms are protected, and that they don't become a part of a Soviet state as they once were.
You know, we're up against the clock, but I do want to ask you this a question about your own party, Congressman. So New York Democrats overwhelmingly supported Zohran Mamdani, a self-proclaimed socialist, over one of the biggest names in Democratic politics in the last 10 years. Some are calling this a significant shift in the party. Mamdani has called for things like New York's police force not assisting ICE, defunding the NYPD, to refund social services, that he's going to freeze rent, create city-owned grocery stores, and he has big plans to tax the rich. What does his rise signal to you about the state of the party?
Well, he clearly ran a good campaign, and he's a new face and charismatic. But we have a very diverse Democratic Party. And I think what the election shows is the diversity there, not only in New York, but around the country. And we've always been a very diverse party with a lot of different points of view on how we should go forward and deal with inflation, deal with the economy, the things that Americans care most about, bread and butter issues. And so I think we saw in that race an appeal toward a fresh new look. But I think that the common values that Democrats have stood for years, for working men and women, is ultimately what's going to determine the election results next year.
So do you believe his rise is unsurprising in a region like New York, or do you believe this is a bit of a shift within the Democratic Party? You have the president saying that this crosses a new threshold, calling him 100% a communist lunatic.
Well, our president is not shy about name calling, is he? But the fact is that, again, we're a diverse party. I think his characterization of this gentleman is way off base. But the fact is it represents a part of America that is seeking to have better opportunities. And we'll see what happens in the runoff elections here. But certainly there's a portion of the New York voting constituency that he appealed to successfully.
Yeah. All right. We'll wait and see on that. Finally, You represent California. It's at the center of President Trump's immigration crackdown. Most Americans agree the immigration system is broken in one way or another, and the changes are Congress's responsibility. What do you think Congress should be doing, and how do you think the party's bridging the gap to get it done today?
Well, I think Congress ought to be working on a bipartisan effort on comprehensive immigration reform. I've supported that since I first came to Congress. The closest we came was in 2013 with Senator McCain, and a measure that passed the United States Senate by 68 to 32. I think it would have passed the House if Speaker Boehner had brought it up. We are working with incremental improvements for immigration reform, the Farm Worker Modernization Act that would allow for legal status for farm workers. And I think we could expand that to border security as well as Dreamers. I think if the president leaned in on this effort, we could have a bipartisan immigration reform package that would deal with the issues of the border, that would focus on hardworking people in agriculture, in the hospitality industry, and in construction. And we need those individuals to do those jobs, to put food on America's dinner table every night with our farmers, our ranchers, and dairymen and women. It's that simple.
All right, Representative Jim Costa, great to have your voice on all these topics. Thank you for weighing in.
Thank you.